Spurs take on Leicester. I want to give some sympathy to Ange. I think so does Kim. But Kweku does not. The man who gives sympathy to everyone on earth does not want to give any sympathy. Let's hear your thoughts before we tackle it.
I don't like hearing injuries as an excuse. And I get it. Spurs have got a lot of injuries, right? And that adds context to a situation. But look at where they are in the league. They didn't lose that game 3-2 against Everton. They could have lost that game by a lot more because of these injuries. They lost it because there's a lack of quality, there's a lack of desire. Talking to a Spurs fan, they said, yeah, but they haven't down tools on Ange yet. I said, God forbid they actually do down tools because you lot are getting relegated. They are not playing football to an adequate enough level, and I can get the excuse of injuries because it does affect your squad when you haven't got your first 11 out there. But the way they are playing football, it's kamikaze. It's almost like they're playing with no brain. Ange has dropped the line a little bit deeper, so they're not playing as high of a line. But even despite that, they just don't have any semblance of play. They don't look like a cohesive team, and I'm not here to give sympathies, right? When Chelsea got injuries last season, I wasn't expecting sympathy. When Man United had so many injuries last season, was not giving out sympathies. Injuries happen in football. I get it. Spurs have got a lot of them, but they should be doing a lot better than they are doing right now. Because if you look at the players that are fit, there's still quality there. Maddison's still a quality player. Son is a player that's proved over seasons that he's quality. Maybe his levels have dropped a little bit, but those levels look a lot lower because Spurs are terrible. Kulusevski, I got told, was one of the most improved players in the Premier League this season. They've got players there that know how to play football, but they're not putting forth performances like that week in, week out, and I don't think they deserve sympathy for it.
You can't just glibly say that the injury crisis doesn't matter. Sarr, Romero, Van de Ven, Solanke, Vicario, Udogie, Odegaard, Werner, Basuma, Johnson, Forster. Never seen an injury crisis like this.
Van de Ven is Andrew's fault. He rushed him back in the game against Chelsea, knew his hamstrings were gone. His hamstrings are perpetually injured. Ange rushed him back. What happened? His hamstrings went. Van de Ven's hamstrings are always going to go. I'm now putting him in the category of Reece James. No one allows Chelsea to have the excuse of Reece James injured because he's always injured. Van de Ven...
Reece James has been injured for about 6 years.
Yeah,
straight.
but Van de Ven
just started getting injured.
Since he come to Premier League, last year, injured. This year, injured.
Every manager always rushes back their best players, their most important players, and Van de Ven is Ange's most important man. I think sometimes we're so quick to just say, like, oh, we need to sack him and we need a big change. And I think really when you take, like, the overall context of football, you look at, like, for example, Sir Alex Ferguson or Pep Guardiola. Guardiola's been there 10 years, right?
Yeah.
This will be a really bad season.
Yeah.
In 10 years' time, we'll look back on it and we'll go, no one will remember it, no one will care about it. This is just going to be a bad season for Spurs. It's going to be a bad season because of injuries. That's the only reason it's going to be a bad season. If everyone was fit, they'd be playing a lot better. They'd definitely be in the second half of the table. We saw what happened last year. They finished fifth. They're in the Europa League. They're still in 3 competitions. And I think it speaks volumes that they are 15th in the league. Spurs are 15th in the league. And it's not overwhelmingly Ange out at all. I think the fans have taken a bit of a step back. They've understood that there are probably problems at the hierarchy, not spending the right money at the right time in the right places, because they've had fantastic managers. They've had Conte, they've had Mourinho, they've had winners. And now they've got a manager there who's trying to play attractive style of football, something that Spurs fans complained about the other managers for, and he is doing that. And he's been, pardon the pun, hamstrung by a ridiculous injury crisis. I don't think you can blame him for the form.
I can hear what you're saying, Kweku, that I want to see him coach his way out of it. I can understand that to an extent. And I think also he has snookered himself a little bit because he constantly goes on about, I will play my own style. And now if he deviates away from that, everyone's going to get onto him. But then I do look at this team and I go, you can have all the forwards fit that you want. I remember Liverpool's injury crisis. If you remember, they had all their centre-backs out, so they were playing midfielders at centre-back. But they had Salah fit and he was dragging them over the line. But if you can't get the ball to your forwards, it doesn't matter. And I look at this back line and Archie Gray's a kid being forced to play at centre-back and he's doing decent for what he's trying to do, but there's so many times he's so much deeper than the line. It's not his fault. He's playing next to Ben Davies, whose best years were probably 4 or 5 seasons ago in a back 3. Jed Spence wasn't even playing in the Premier League last year, and he's a right back playing left back. Perhaps Sarr has been playing through injury all season. Son is struggling, to be honest. Richarlison's been injured for ages. Kulusevski, I agree with, and even now he's still their best player. And Bergvall has been amazing. Yeah. The problem that I would have is if against Leicester they're going to lose, because Leicester for me right now are down there with Southampton, the 2 worst teams in the league. If they lose this game, I think you can then very correctly go, hold on a minute. But Everton, a new manager bounce at home.
So is injuries the reason why they made hard work of it against non-league Tamworth, had to go to extra time? There's no injuries that can can excuse that type of
Cup
performance.
football, man. Like they're
Come on.
Jazz singing a Tamworth goal turned up.
What do you think is the problem? You think it's the manager?
Don't get twisted. Spurs, there are deeper problems there than Ange, right? The board have underserved the squad for years and years and years. And the reason why there's not an overwhelming sense of Ange out from Spurs fans is because they know that Daniel Levy is probably the biggest problem at that football club. But Spurs are 15th in the Premier League table. That's unacceptable. That can't run. Everton couldn't buy a goal. You can tell me about their good results away at home against Man City, against Chelsea, against Arsenal, but they weren't scoring goals. They scored 3 against Spurs, and there could have been 6. They made Dominic Calvert-Lewin look like Inzaghi. It's unacceptable what's going on at that football club in terms of the results. And eventually, something's going to change. The ownership group's not going to change. And I'm sorry, I really like Ange, and when he first was appointed, I think we were bigging him up massively. But he's going to have to change. And what will turn, and what is holding Spurs fans together right now, is they're still in 3 cup competitions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. They play Liverpool in the second leg of the EFL Cup, and I think the game after that is Aston Villa away in the FA Cup. Watch when they go out those 2 competitions, watch the narrative turn, because it's unacceptable to be 15th to the table after 22 games if you're Spurs.
If say they make the final, they beat Liverpool, and let's say they go out to Villa, would that change? Does it then even matter where they finish in the league?
I don't think so. And I'm not sure if it does to Spurs fans as well. I think they're just crying out for a trophy. I think the worst mistake that Daniel Levy ever made, and you are right, he is the biggest problem. He's been the biggest problem for the last decade, and he probably will continue to be, because he has no intention of selling the football club. He had Jose Mourinho in a final against an out-of-form Man City team and sacked him just so he could save money on the trophy bonus for Jose Mourinho. That is inexplicable managing of a football club, especially when you purport to be a fan of that club and love that club and want to do the best for the fans. So I think if Ange can win Spurs the Carabao Cup, I think it doesn't really matter, because they're not going to go down, are they? We know they're not going to go down. It doesn't really matter if they finish 15th or 8th. Those positions don't matter apart from a little bit of financials and a little bit of optics.
Bro, they want to see better football at Spurs, not Beyonce performing there. They want to see football. They don't want to be viewed as a product. They don't want to be viewed as just something to enhance the pockets of their owners. But I completely understand that. But it does get to a point in time where it's like, these results are just abnormal. These results are just bizarre. The performance against Tamworth was abnormal. Tamworth could have won that game in 90 minutes. The performance against Everton, honestly, watch the whole 90 minutes. I couldn't believe what I was watching. Like, Calvert-Lewin was running everybody ragged. I know it's Dragerson, who's not a Premier League footballer. I know it's Archie Gray, who's not a centre-back. But the performances need to be better, man.
All right, we're going to talk about Ruud van Nistelrooy, because when he subbed off El Canoes the weekend, Leicester fans were chanting, "You don't know what you're doing." Is his job in danger? Just very quickly, do you think his job's in danger?
Yeah.
I don't think he should have been brought in necessarily. I think Cooper is a massively underrated manager. I mean, I cried when he got... No, I cried out and then cried. I cried out when he got sacked by Forest, but that obviously has worked out quite well. I don't think Van Nistelrooy ever should have been appointed, but I think there must be an eye to the owners of thinking, we might go down anyway. Let's get a manager in now who's available, who can bring us back up playing a style of football which we want to see. And I think Van Nistelrooy's style of football, particularly when he was at PSV, won the cup there, is obviously objectively a more attractive on the eye than Steve Cooper. So I think they brought him in with the knowledge that they would probably go down in order to rebuild a squad with him and bring them back up.
All right, score predictions for this one. Just a quick stat for you. There have been 130 goals in 35 Premier League meetings between Tottenham and Leicester. The highest goals per game ratio of any fixture to have played at least 30 times. That's madness.
Crazy. Harry Kane used to love it against Leicester.
Yeah.
I've just slated Spurs. I've just gone in on Spurs. But
hey, listen, if you're watching, watch all the previews we've done. This keeps happening.
But Spurs win this game. Spurs win this game quite comfortably as well. Leicester are terrible, and I actually disagree with you. Like, I think that Van Nistelrooy, talking to Spurs fans, they're not having him. Like, he got the job on not on a technicality, but got a job on the back of a decent performance as Manchester United manager, beaten Leicester a couple of times, but I don't think he's cut out for this job, and I think that Spurs will inflict a heavy defeat, 3-1, and Van Nistelrooy won't be in the job for very long.
Oh, I was going to say 3-1 as well. I think I'm just going to stick with it. I did 3-1 as well. Spurs will concede.
I was going to say 3-1 as well, but I'll go 4-2. I think there'll be 2 goals in it, but yeah, Spurs will get back to winning ways.